Based on my experience, it seems that fewer men are interested in marriage because they can obtain everything they desire in a relationship without the commitment. What are your thoughts? Story 1. My ex woke up one day and decided she didn't want to work anymore. In her late 20s, she believed that taking care of her dog would constitute her contribution to the relationship. My laundry was rarely done for me. She didn't cook, and she didn't even mow the lawn. She expected to be supported while she floated through life. I ended up evicting her after a year of unemployment because she refused to be an equal partner. She wanted a free ride, and I had no say in the matter. It was never about the money. Her annual income was less than my annual bonus. I made plenty of money for both of us, provided she kept her spending in check. I made it clear early in the relationship that I wanted effort, not that she needed to earn as much as I did. After she stopped working, she spent even more money. She wanted me to hire a maid. If we had been married, she would have received a significant portion of my wealth in the breakup. Instead, she left with nothing. I now have a maid and a landscaper. They are more affordable than supporting her, and I am less stressed. Story 2. The biggest risks to my current lifestyle are divorce and prison. Marriage offers me nothing but the risk of divorce. I have experienced it, lost everything once before, and I won't go through it again. Story 3. I never really wanted to get married, but then I met and fell in love with my wife. I realized I wanted to be her husband and have her as my wife. There are no other reasons or explanations for my decision. Story 4. I do not like the idea of being financially and legally tied to someone, especially since there is a good chance I will end up on the losing side in a divorce. I also do not understand why I would, when marriage no longer carries much meaning and approximately 50% of married couples get divorced. It seems like a needless risk. Story 5. Maybe it's contradictory, but I married my wife at a stage where we both felt we didn't need marriage aside from pleasing family. The week after the marriage was just the same as the year before, but with an extra suit and a one-time use dress. Story 6. I wouldn't say without the commitment. Men like to commit, despite popular belief. It's more like, without the woman taking half my belongings after breaking my heart. Realistically, the reasons I want to get married are based on what other people think or what will allow me to do. I want others to know how serious I am about my partner and to respect our relationship. I want them to understand it's for life, not just for now. I want to be allowed to ride in an ambulance with her. I want her to be able to make healthcare decisions for me if I'm not able. I want the government to view us as a family, not two individuals. If one of us is able to immigrate to another country, I want the other to be able to go as well. Matters like that, strictly between the two of us, I don't see why marriage would matter one way or the other. Story 7. I didn't for the first 27 years of my life. Like others, the idea of being financially tied to someone was unpleasant, and having children was unthinkable. Then suddenly I did. I met someone who seemed to be my other half. I know it's a cliché. 16 years later and with 2 children, I can't imagine life without my wife or my boys. Story 8. Personally, I wouldn't mind being married. I just don't want to be divorced. Due to family courts often siding with women, many men view marriage as signing a contract with someone who is rewarded for breaking it. Story 9. With the right partner, there is an emotional and financial benefit to marriage. With the wrong partner, there is a greater emotional and financial drawback. Given the current circumstances, marriage poses a greater risk to a man's future. Story 10. I don't understand the point of it. I support a lifelong monogamous relationship, but I don't see marriage as a necessary part of that. Story 11. I would love to get married one day, mainly because it's one of the greatest celebrations you can have, and it's all about you and your love. I worked as a wedding photographer for a few years, and I remember every single wedding I have ever attended, simply because they were so much fun and everyone was so happy. However, my country has very relaxed laws about divorce and marriage, so I can understand why men in the United States might be hesitant. Here, you typically only divide possessions acquired after the marriage took place. There is no alimony, and child custody is generally easier for men to obtain, so there are not really many downsides. Story 12. To be honest, I never wanted to get married. Now that I am married, I can confidently say it means nothing to me and has even brought more pain than I could have avoided. I complained about the diamond ring size. We were students with a baby on the way, with no clear future ahead while living with our parents. I worked hard to get her this ring to provide her with assurance that I would be by her side through it all. She strongly implied how important it was for her to be engaged before the birth. We almost broke up 3 to 4 times during the wedding planning. She was unemployed, while I was a full-time dad with my older child and working night shifts. I nearly ended it all when I sought support from her before the wedding. She knew how much I disliked these types of situations, but she was ready to throw everything away the day before the wedding. I am a different person at this stage, having matured a lot thanks to the complications. However, if marriage has given me anything, it is the trauma I live with and hide from my family. Story 13. I want to combine resources, have children, and spend the rest of my life with a woman. I understand all of that can happen without marriage, but a wedding feels like a solid end of one chapter and the beginning of the next. That satisfaction removes a significant amount of the fear regarding the next steps. Divorce is difficult, no doubt about it, but I'm willing to take the risk. Story 14. I want to be married because it secures my future more than just a long-term relationship. I would never marry unless I am completely sure I love this person after being together for 5 to 10 years. Additionally, my dad and stepmom have an amazing marriage, and growing up with that makes me believe it is a positive thing. My mother never married, and she had poor partners. Story 15. Our great-grandmother saying that men do not want to commit if they can receive benefits without responsibility. Story 16. Witness an ugly divorce from my parents. I tried to believe in true love and marriage, but I ended up getting married and then received a Dear John phone call while deployed. I understand that it is hard being away from a spouse for 6 to 18 months, yet marriage is supposed to be about an everlasting bond and 2 souls united as one through their religious marriage ceremony. Why go through all that but not truly commit? I recognize my mistake in choosing a partner who gave up on us, and that does not reflect on marriage as a whole. I thought I chose well by marrying someone who had experienced separation due to deployments, but it turns out it is tougher for her as a spouse to handle. I have been with my current partner for 11 years now, and we remain unmarried. We have outlasted many other relationships that ended in divorce during our time together. At this point, I see no reason to fix what is not broken. Story 17. I see no benefits to marriage that I couldn't have while being in a long-term relationship. It seems like some people, mainly women, just want the title of wife and a ring as a form of validation. I'm not interested in being with someone who seeks that much approval from society. Furthermore, I don't believe in cohabitation and do not intend to live in the same house as my significant other, even after we have children. I have observed that most married couples who live together often end up resenting each other from constantly being in each other's presence, which frequently results in infidelity or a lack of intimacy before ultimately leading to divorce. Overall, I think marriage is an outdated institution, and I do not envy any of the married men I have met, including those in my family. Story 18. I was married for 42 years. I lost my wife to dementia and had to watch her deteriorate over several years. I'm not sure I want another relationship. I wouldn't mind having someone to share life with, but I have a fear of losing someone again. I also don't need more family. I have 7 grandchildren. Story 19. I wanted to marry my wife. We got engaged after a year and married about a year later. It has been over 25 years now, and I have no regrets. At the time we got married, she had $4,000 to her name, and I had $5,000. It didn't seem like I was risking much at the time. Story 20. I never wanted to get married in my life. I'm in my mid-40s and have never done so. Now I can't wait to. I met a girl I want in my life every day. I want to provide for her, care for her, and have her by my side. Legally, marriage provides better protections if something happens. I waited. I found her. It's time. Story 21. Being married to the right person is truly amazing. While there are some disadvantages, the overall experience is overwhelmingly positive. You have to take risks to achieve great rewards. Story 22. I didn't want to ever get married until I met my current partner. I am 32, and it never crossed my mind until her. I had long-term relationships and always saw marriage as a transactional thing. Now, I want to build a life for us and ensure we are both financially secure. The idea of sharing our lives together forever brings me a lot of joy and makes me think this is the only time I have truly been in love. Story 23. I still believe in marriage. If you want to have children, and you should because they are amazing, it is really helpful to ensure both parents are willing to make a public declaration of their lifelong commitment to each other through thick and thin. Story 24. I wanted to get married because it seemed like a special way to romantically bind myself to my wife. We are in it together. Story 25. I am somewhat indifferent about it. Being married was pleasant, but I do not feel a strong desire to get remarried unless my hypothetical partner really wanted to or perhaps needed insurance coverage. Even so, I cannot envision having another large wedding at this point. Maybe just a trip to the courthouse and a nice dinner with close friends and immediate family. Story 26. As a man, I don't have anything to gain from marriage but plenty to lose, even before divorce. It's a losing game rigged from the start. Story 27. I am getting married next year. We love each other and have been together for 10 years. We often joke that we are as good as married already, so it makes sense to make it official. Story 28. What do you think men want in a relationship? Just sex? Yes, some men may find that outside of a relationship. However, many men seek companionship in the same way that women do. This post reflects a reductionist view of men. Story 29. Because they can get everything they want in a relationship without the commitment. This is where you are wrong. Men are not avoiding marriage. They are avoiding divorce. Men want to get married for life, not just until there is a problem and she leaves with half of his paycheck, the kids, and half of his life savings. Story 30. When I was a kid, I wanted to get married. I had this fantasy of meeting the one. Dating, moving in, getting married, and maybe having a child. Now, after 30 years, I don't want children and I don't want marriage either. Today, due to how dating works and the influence of social media, infidelity has become incredibly easy, and discarding people is not uncommon, even after years in a relationship. People see something new and shiny, want it, and pursue it, leaving devastation behind. I feel like most people have stopped trying to fix or improve their relationships. It's either a perfect relationship or it's time to move on. As for children, I earn a good income, but having a child would mean shifting to an average or below average lifestyle. Given where the world is heading, I refuse to bring another human being into this chaotic reality. Of course, there is a chance I might find someone who shares my perspective and has the willingness to work on problems instead of just seeking a new partner. Even then, I struggle to see the concept of being together for over 40 years as realistic. That's an incredibly long time, and I find it hard to believe that, in today's circumstances, couples can avoid cheating on each other. The temptation is overwhelming and easily acted upon. If I were to get married, I would risk my financial stability, and an eventual divorce could lead to losing face in my traditional family. Story 31. Because I hope for a day in my future when I teach my own child how to paint properly, and my wife comes out to see if we want some lunch. I desire that perfect moment with the heat and the smell of freshly cut grass, rubbing my hand in my child's hair, and seeing the woman I love smiling at me in our yard. It seems so far away right now. I'm in my 30s and barely keeping my head above water enough to breathe while preparing to move into an even smaller one-bedroom that I am unsure I can afford, and working a second job. I couldn't ask anyone to be with me right now if I wouldn't even want to be with myself. But that's the challenge I have to face before I reach that backyard dream. And how do you tackle a big challenge? One step at a time. Story 32. I want to get married, but I want it as much as I want $100 million. I recognize it probably isn't happening, so I will try to desire it less and focus on more realistic pursuits. Story 33. I always wanted to get married, have kids, and live in the suburbs. Now that I have all of that, it is truly great. Marriage is simple if you are married for the right reasons. I love cuddling, intimacy, comfort, and love. When both partners contribute to the marriage, it becomes a well-oiled machine. Story 34. Marriage can be wonderful if you choose the right person. Someone who is sensible, desires a family, and holds strong values. Men often become blinded by appearances and overlook important warning signs. Life can be fulfilling with a quality partner and children, all striving toward a shared goal of enhancing the family in terms of wealth, health, and experience. However, if family members lack values, show indifference, are unmotivated, and spend all day on their phones or watching television while consuming unhealthy food, then it can lead to disaster. Story 35. I don't want to get married because there is a high chance of it falling apart, and the other side, women are often incentivized to break the contract. I see many men get taken advantage of by marriage and deal with abuse and empty relationships but choose not to love because they are scared of losing their children and assets. After hearing so many cases of this, why would I put myself in the exact same position? I find it baffling that men today are still getting married in the age of the internet, where we can access information that clearly shows they will be the disadvantaged party. There are some benefits, but they are insignificant when everything is taken into account. The risks far outweigh the benefits. Story 36. I want to get married because I have been with the most perfect woman in the world for 2 years now, and I cannot imagine life without her. Legally, marriage will make things much easier for us in the long run. Although I am nervous about it since my parents went through a difficult divorce that divided our family, I know that I am making the right choice as long as I am thoughtful about it. Story 37. I have not seen a single healthy relationship in my life, except on television. It seems that all relationships end in either breakups, divorce, or death. I am not dealing with any of that. Story 38. Next time you want to get married, consider the idea of focusing on personal growth. Being single and investing in yourself, your happiness, your peace, travel, and your future is completely fulfilling. I genuinely want to become wealthy and then adopt a child. I want to teach them everything I have learned and allow them to inherit everything I have worked for. When you think about it, it's like giving a child a winning lottery ticket. At the very least, by the end of your life, you can know you made a positive impact on someone's life that could create a ripple effect, leading to a more positive world. That sounds like my dream, to be honest. Story 39. Parents had a terrible divorce. An older brother had an even worse divorce. An uncle always said he would leave, but he cannot because he would be financially ruined. Another aunt gets beaten regularly but will not leave because marriage is sacred. Let's say I had a rather lopsided outlook on marriage. After being with my girlfriend for about 10 years, she knew I never wanted to marry but still stayed with me. We decided to marry anyway. I was 41 at the time. We are now in our 5th year, have children, and are still very happy. Story 40. What rights, privileges, and protections does marriage grant me that are not available without being married? What duties, responsibilities, and consequences does marriage impose on me that I could avoid by not being married? These two considerations are why I would never marry and why I encourage other men to avoid marriage as well. Story 41. Divorce is caused 70% of the time by women, with the most cited reason being no fault. Issues include lack of rights for fathers, alimony, and child support. Family courts are extremely biased. The treatment of men in relationships is often unfair, yet they are frequently blamed for the issues. Additionally, consider researching divorce rates among same-sex couples before attributing the collapse of marriage solely to men. Story 42. I feel that women often seek marriage for the sake of being married rather than for love. Especially after age 30, women seem eager to marry and may pressure their partners for marriage after a certain period of dating, as if simply dating is a waste of time. If you do not enjoy dating me or living with me enough to do it for its own sake, what hope is there for a happy marriage? Additionally, as the primary financial provider in every case, I have often felt that women sought to marry me for financial security rather than for love. I do not find any significant difference between being married and simply living together. Story 43. I was married and divorced. What I realized through the whole process is that a piece of paper from the government means nothing. What actually matters is the relationship. If you have a committed, caring relationship and build a life together. That's what truly matters. For me, I want a committed relationship for life. I want to choose to be with my partner, and I want them to choose to be with me. To me, the choice and commitment matter more than a piece of paper. Also, what if my partner and I travel to Brazil and get married, then come back to the United States? Does that mean we aren't married because we don't have the documentation from the United States? Are we only married after we register it in the United States? Would you say that anyone who has ever gotten married overseas isn't actually married? Why or why not? Story 44. For me, it's not about not wanting to get married. Rather, I won't settle. I am fit, relatively healthy, look average, went to therapy, and have the potential to be a high earner in the upcoming years. Plus, getting legally married to the wrong person without a prenuptial agreement can be catastrophic. I expect my partner to be not obese, relatively healthy, in therapy or willing to go, sexually transmitted infection-free, supportive, and feminine. Story 45, because it makes no sense. I have nothing against marriage, but I genuinely don't understand why it exists. Does your father have valuable land that my father and I can inherit? In that case, yes, let's marry. Does your family elevate my family's status to one day inherit the throne? So let's marry. Will God condemn us to suffer eternally if we don't marry? If that's the case, then yes, let's marry quickly. Apart from those reasons, it makes no sense. It's arbitrary and proves nothing. I just don't understand it beyond being a very expensive event, an opportunity to show off, or perhaps a comfort for the insecure. Story 46. You should really add a third category. Men who want to get married but cannot. Why? Story 47. Marriage seems like an unfavorable arrangement to me. Regularly managing your partner's emotions can be challenging. Many women may feel entitled to dictate a man's life, nag him, and treat him like a servant. Some may even feel entitled to punish him by making him sleep on the couch, using intimacy as leverage, or even asking him to leave. No, thank you. Story 48. My thought process. I was born, participated in the rat race, leveled up, enjoyed life, and then I died like 95% of everyone else. We all chase the same pointless things. The only thing I noticed in that is me, and that made me feel empty and want to end my life. Because what's the point? Chasing pleasure my whole life gets old fast. I've had financial freedom and the life before, and it becomes dull very quickly. When I started to think about having someone to take care of, love, and serve selflessly, I saw a tiny light in that emptiness. That's why I want to get married. It doesn't mean I threw away all of my standards and preferences. I am lucky enough to have found someone who checks all of my boxes, and I get to love and serve her for the rest of my life. Having her reciprocate that to me is something so wonderful that I can't even explain. Imagine being the direct cause of someone's happiness every day and knowing you are theirs too. Story 49. I have been divorced once. I'm not getting married again. It is still an ongoing pain 2 years later. Even the most secure prenuptial agreement cannot guarantee that my future assets will remain safe. I am not going to spend years rebuilding my life and then give someone the ability to take everything away again. Story 50. I am married with children. I wanted to create a legacy and strive to do better than my parents. Children add purpose to life that cannot be achieved in any other way. Story 51. I believe much of the issue stems from divorce laws that seem to favor women, allowing them to lie, enter a marriage, have an affair, and take half of a man's assets in the divorce. Laws truly need reform. If a woman chooses to leave the marriage without the man having any fault, she should be entitled to only what she contributed. If she has an affair, she should receive nothing. These laws that are biased against men are problematic. Story 52. It's less about commitment than risk. Marriage has a negative reputation among certain groups of men today. It is not nearly as bad as much of the internet suggests. However, it is also not without its flaws. Story 53. I desperately want to get married. It's disappointing that I feel I am not marriage material. Being a 32-year-old man who has never kissed or had a romantic relationship is disheartening. Story 54. In the past, women did not engage in sexual relationships with men before marriage. Today, many men have full-fledged relationships without the title of marriage because women are accepting of this. As a man, why should I get married if I can receive similar treatment without being married? I once heard a saying that women gatekeep sex while men gatekeep marriage. Story 55. Divorce is expensive. Weddings are expensive. Do we really need the government involved in our relationships? There is fear that people will behave differently once they are married. On the other hand, there is appeal to stability, which is especially important if you want to have children. You are legally recognized as a family and can make medical decisions when they are unable to. Some people tend to respect marriages more. A married man or woman is often seen as more respectable than an unmarried person. If you are attracted to someone, their marital status is a greater deterrent than simply having a boyfriend or girlfriend. Story 56. I'm not seeing why marriage is a stipulation for having a house and kids. Is marriage protecting your children from something I don't know about? Is the house any less yours if you buy it together outside of marriage? This is a genuine question. If you're relying on a piece of paper to make you feel secure, then I wonder about your relationship in general. I don't think I want to be married. It feels like a lot of effort and money spent for something I can achieve without it. Don't half of marriages fail? I think the consensus is that women want to be married more than men. I wonder why that is. Story 57. I have my own house and several other assets, and I earn a good income. There is substantial financial risk for me in getting legally married, not to mention the challenges I would face in custody courts if that situation arises. I would much prefer a woman who understands this and can appreciate what I can offer her and our future children without needing a formal agreement. I live in Los Angeles, and it is incredibly rare to find a woman worth the potential risk, even if I considered the idea. My question to you and other women is, given that many men are opting out in this way, what actions are you taking to help change the situation? Story 58. It's like this. You know how when you touch a hot stove it burns you? Some people learn the first time. For others, it may take a few more touches. Story 59. With 50% of marriages ending in divorce, marriage is no longer viewed as a strong commitment. Additionally, issues such as spousal support, child support, the risk of losing personal assets, court and attorney fees, no-fault divorce laws, and the stress on families and children contribute to this perspective. This is just my opinion, but the risks associated with marriage do not seem worthwhile. I would prefer to be in a monogamous relationship in a state without common law marriage, avoiding government involvement. Story 60. It's not just men who don't want to get married. Although the stereotype suggests that women are the ones who desire marriage the most, the number of women who do not want to marry is also increasing. Personally, I have little interest in marriage because I do not see how it would improve a romantic relationship. Legal benefits are the only reason I would consider marriage. The idea that marriage makes a relationship more special by demonstrating commitment is perplexing to me. My partner making a vow to love me forever in front of family would never be as meaningful as her choosing to stay with me without any obligation. Story 61. I genuinely want a great relationship with one loyal woman, where we can build a family and grow old together. Story 62. I got off easy with my divorce. Marriage offers no benefits to men. It's all risk based on their partner's emotions. I was originally excited to get married, but I will never do it again. I will happily spend my life with a partner, but the legal contract giving a woman the power to ruin my life is absolutely out of the question. Story 63. I'm torn between the two. Why does the government have to get involved in my love life? A woman initiates divorce more than men, which adds to my concerns. On the other hand, I wouldn't mind getting married if I found the right person, but I just have no interest in dating. I enjoy doing my own thing and traveling. Story 64. I didn't want to get married in general, but I did want to marry my wife. She is the most generous, loving, and patient person I know. We got together young and decided to share everything. I didn't have any money to bring to the table, but she never batted an eye. Everything we have built and everything we have today is because I committed to her, and she turned it into something meaningful. She deserves legal acknowledgement that it is ours. I wouldn't have a retirement account or a house without her. Story 65. I appreciate the concept of marriage, but I am hesitant to sign a legal contract that places all the risks and costs solely on me without any benefits. No rational individual would choose to marry under the current laws. There is no advantage for a man in this arrangement, and the risk involves losing your home, wealth, children, and being subjected to a situation of oppression by someone who has betrayed you. Story 66. I don't want to get married. Looking at the benefits of marriage, I don't need any of them, so it wouldn't make sense to do so. Story 67. I believe that marriage takes the romance out of a relationship. If I am going to spend my life with someone, I want it to be because we continually choose each other, not because we are legally obligated to stay together. Story 68. I know I am essentially describing a prenuptial agreement, but I just want a long-term monogamous significant other to share my life with, all without the risk of losing half of my savings and retirement. I have seen too many horror stories of men losing half of their savings to women who cheated on them due to short-sighted equal distribution laws. Forget that. Story 69. In my opinion, marriage is not an essential requirement in life. If you love someone, be with them and support each other. That is all that matters. Marriage is merely a piece of paper. It will not improve your relationship. In fact, it may financially burden you due to the high costs of weddings. We will simply do the registration and be done with it, honestly. Story 70. Receiving the benefits of a relationship without commitment is puzzling. What do you mean by lack of commitment? If he is already your boyfriend, that implies a level of exclusive commitment. Why frame your reasonable questions in a disingenuous way, as if there isn't already a commitment? Even if you do get married, he can still choose to divorce you and leave, so I don't understand your point about obtaining benefits without commitment. Story 71. The contract between you and your significant other is one-sided and is underwritten by the government. This creates a need for a prenuptial agreement to balance the unfavorable contract for the man. Alternatively, one can simply be with someone, contracts aside. We don't need a document to be with someone wholeheartedly. The failed government experiment that is marriage has become big business for lawyers. Story 72. I will never get married under any circumstances. There is nothing I can gain in a marriage that I cannot obtain outside of a marriage, and there is nothing I can lose from a marriage, but everything to lose within a marriage. Story 73. Marriage can often feel like a financial burden, with the groom typically shouldering significant costs associated with the celebration. If marriage is truly about love, why is there a need for a legal contract? Contracts can seem like a means to compel people to fulfill obligations. Shouldn't love be a choice made freely? Everyone involved should be committed, whether there is a contract, an extravagant celebration, or an expensive ring. Story 74. I want to get married someday. The reason is that I have seen people around me find happiness that way, and I find the idea of marrying someone and spending my life with them very appealing. Even if there is a potential for things to go wrong if I choose to marry someone, then they are worth the gamble. Story 75. I didn't want to get married until I met my now wife. The entire concept didn't really matter to me, but for her, having her ideal wedding was something she dreamed about as a kid. She went through a lot with an abusive and harmful father, and having a family that was the complete opposite was all she ever wanted. While a ring and a piece of paper don't change how I view our relationship, being able to do everything I can to make the woman I want to be with forever safe and happy is worth the headache and risk. If things don't work out someday, that's just how it goes. I've seen my dad get divorced 3 times. I'm doing the marriage thing exactly once. Story 76. I don't want to get married because I enjoy being happy and having the freedom to make my own decisions, like buying a bag of chips without needing permission from anyone. The married men I know seem unhappy and have given up their independence. They act as though it is crucial that I get married. I wonder, why would I want to be as unhappy as they are? I'm not interested in joining their circle of unhappiness or having to share my apartment, bank account, social media profiles, and every aspect of my private life with someone I don't even like just because others think they know what is best for me. Story 77. What does marriage honestly give anyone? I have been alive for over 3 decades now, and during that time, no one has ever provided me with a satisfactory answer to this question. The responses I usually hear are, because my partner wanted it, or because it's something people do, or I don't know. Can't you just love someone without all the fuss? Story 78. I observe how my mother interacts with my father and how many other men are treated by their partners, and I want no part of that. I would love to find a partner who would treat me as an equal until the day we die, but I have seen too many beautiful, happy relationships turn incredibly sour, and divorce proceedings are often not kind to men. Story 79. It is possible to commit at the same level without the legal documents of marriage. Ultimately, marriage is just a legal agreement with a large celebration associated with it. The legal aspect of marriage is often perceived as biased against men, making the decision to marry less appealing for many. Story 80. There is no upside to it anymore. I am set and make more than enough to support myself and another. I have peace. Why would I want to interrupt any of that? Story 81. This is for you, not the comments, because it will get buried by now. I married at 22. I also led a highly experienced lifestyle way beyond what most people in their 20s do. By the age of 21, I had attended advanced specialty schools, traveled to several countries around the world, and had a significant number of girlfriends, dates, and one-night stands. I knew without any hesitation that it was the right time. 32 years later, I have children I was able to enjoy raising and spending time with in my prime. I am a young grandfather and have many wonderful years of doing things just for me and my wife still ahead of me. I'm not too old to enjoy life. Story 82. I am a female, and this is my opinion. Ladies, it is important not to give everything to a man who is not serious about his relationship with you before marriage. Otherwise, he may perceive you as cheap and think he can easily discard you or treat you like an unwanted pet. Additionally, for men who are unwilling to commit, considering the idea of hiring domestic help or a landscaper can be quite beneficial. Story 83. Some people, through no fault of their own, simply aren't made to be coupled with someone else, and I am one of those people. I would much rather be alone than be with the wrong person or be someone else's wrong person. It isn't worth it. Story 84. I have watched my dad go through 2 marriages before finally finding his current wife. I saw my mother suffer through her second marriage to an abusive alcoholic. I have seen multiple friends face financial ruin, and one friend lost all access to his child due to an extremely mentally abusive ex-wife. He has to juggle an incredibly unstable ex-wife and witness how that affects their child. He almost put his house up for sale because the court refused to grant him custody despite his ex having a long history of addiction and abusive relationships. I have watched my cousin lose his son to a wife who claimed he was abusive to his autistic son, even though he was literally across the country driving a truck when the claim was made. I am not opposed to commitment, but I do not view a contract with the government establishing us as a single entity as true commitment. Because of everything I have seen others go through in their lives, I despise the institution of marriage and am ethically opposed to having children. Yes, I have already undergone a vasectomy. The potential high risk versus the very limited reward of marriage is not worth it. Story 85. Being married automatically grants your relationship respect, both in the eyes of others and in the eyes of the law. I have been with my partner for over 8 years, but some people can get married in 6 months and are considered more official than us, just because they paid a fee and declared their love for each other in front of an officiant. Marriage isn't really necessary to define our love for ourselves, but it can convey a lot to those observing us from a distance. Story 86. It would be wonderful to be with your best friend. I have not had any success over the years, though, despite wanting to marry. I suppose it just wasn't meant to be for me. Story 87. I hear my parents never married, and all the people around me seemed happier than my friends' parents, who married young. I work in construction, and every older guy advises against getting married. I'm not against it, but I think many people downplay the seriousness of it. You are essentially stating that this is the only partner you want and that you will desire them for life. To me, that sounds a bit wild. If I met the right person, I would marry them, but I do feel many people settle and pay for it later. Story 88. The benefits of marriage for men specifically have significantly diminished over the past 60 years. While there is more to consider, the primary factor in response to your question is that the cost-benefit analysis now yields negative results. Story 89. I didn't want to get married because I didn't want to become like my dad, who was a miserable, thankless workhorse that abused and controlled his family as revenge for being used. I also didn't want to deal with someone like my mom, who is selfish and prioritizes her financially abusive mother's company over my father's comfort or respect. Every woman I had been with before meeting my fiancée seemed to be using me, and I was almost certain they did not genuinely like me. Then I met my future wife, and oh my God, she is one in a trillion. I cannot imagine not wanting to spend my whole life with her. She genuinely made me believe in miracles. As corny as that sounds, it's the truth. She is patient, sweet, hilariously witty, whip-smart, incredibly empathetic, and talented. She's strong and beautiful in every way a person can be. She turns me on, makes me think, and helps me feel things I thought I couldn't ever feel. I'm a little obsessed with her, but that's okay because she's openly obsessed with me right back. I wouldn't want to marry any other woman, just her. Always her. Story 90. I want a girlfriend, and marriage is supposed to be forever. I'm okay with being committed to someone for life, but having a contract that encourages separation seems unwise. If she truly loved me, she would choose to spend her life with me without a legal agreement based on mutual love. So why get married? Story 91. How does the law work in the United States for people to be so afraid of losing everything? In my home country, there are 3 types of marriage agreements: full community of property, partial community of property, and total separation of property. If the type of agreement is not specified when the couple gets married, the law assumes they are marrying under partial community of assets. This means that what each person owned before getting married continues to belong only to that individual, while anything purchased after the marriage belongs to the couple and will be divided in the event of a divorce. I believe this is the most common model. Full community of assets is typically chosen by couples where the woman will stay at home to care for the family. My husband and I opted for total separation of assets, as we both work and manage our own finances. Story 92. The risk vastly outweighs any benefits. Story 93. Marriage? No man in his right mind would want to marry today's woman. Women now seem extremely unlikable and entitled. They contribute very little of value to a relationship and expect too much. What they often bring is emotional damage from being used and discarded by many men, along with potential children from previous relationships. Men can fulfill every need by keeping them as girlfriends, and when they start to act up or play the "I'm too tired for intimacy" game, they can just end the relationship and move on. When it comes to marriage, women often desire the wedding more than the actual commitment. They want a day to take pictures, look cute, and share on social media. Most marriages, however, do not last beyond 7 years. Statistically, women initiate 3/4 of all divorces in the United States. 92% of alimony is paid by men to women, and 90% of child support goes from men to women. This does not account for additional financial gains received from divorce. In many states, it does not even matter if she was unfaithful throughout the marriage. She still receives her share. No man should marry without a strong prenuptial agreement at the very least, and even then, he risks it being dismissed by an unfavorable judge. Story 94. As many men, when I was young, I thought marriage meant loss of freedom and children. But when I met my future wife, we were both child-free, and the relationship evolved perfectly. No problems, no control, no responsibility, nothing. Of course, after we got married, things remained the same, and we gained some additional benefits, such as medical decision-making rights on behalf of your partner. I am happily married. Disclaimer: that does not mean all partnerships and marriages will work. You need to find the right partner who shares the same life goals and mentality as you and does not have traumas or other issues. This can be quite difficult to find. Took me 10 years, and I won't deny that it was easy. Story 95. Sorry, I am a female and a mother. I am absolutely horrified by the stories I am reading. There are a few stories here that make me think that if someone did that to my son, I would do things that would get me banned from Reddit for even saying so. Some of these stories reminded me of my attempts to get rid of my ex by offering money, drugs, and alcohol to stop his demands for money to feed his insatiable habits and bizarre accusations fueled by deep-seated insecurities. I just want to give you all a big motherly hug, wrap you in a blanket, turn on Pokemon, sit you on the couch near the heater, and give you some chocolate biscuits, reassuring you that your mother will protect you from the harmful people. Story 96. There is no benefit for the man. You might say it locks her down, but in reality, her ring can come off, and she can engage in the same reckless behavior whether married or not. What it really means is that you're losing half of your possessions and having to pay spousal support to someone who has no incentive to act responsibly in an age where many do not prioritize responsibility. It's a hard pass. Story 97. I don't see what value marriage would bring to my relationship. I have been with my girlfriend longer than many marriages last these days. I can't see how marriage could improve things, so what's the point? My only concern is what happens when we are older and decisions about medical care need to be made, especially when one person is unable to make them for themselves. There are ways to deal with it without marriage, but saying, "That's my wife," seems to ease the process significantly. Story 98. Some of us can't trust women anymore. We want honesty, not deceit or manipulation. I would rather be at peace alone than invite a woman who will only offer me physical intimacy and a lot of problems in return. Story 99. I got married young. Usually, men aren't interested in marriage until they outgrow their singles group. They either get tired of casual relationships or start facing criticism for being too old for the group. Then they become interested in marriage. For me, I always wanted to be a husband and a father. There was a girl in high school who was way out of my league, but she was interested in me for whatever reason, so I married her at 20. That was almost 30 years ago. Story 100. It's hard to find a monogamous woman. I'd rather keep things casual than force unrealistic expectations. Story 101. I did it for love and lost half in the end. Why should I sign a contract like that again? It is too risky. Never again. Story 102. Nowadays, everything is disposable, including promises and relationships. In the end, it is bureaucratic and expensive to get a divorce. It is unfortunate that I feel frightened, but that is the current situation. Story 103. I do not see a point. American marriage claims to seek equals, yet I have yet to meet a woman who relinquishes any amount of control to her husband, though they always claim otherwise. The economic system we have created isn't conducive to having children, and all of my colleagues are struggling significantly. The world is literally on fire. Every social safety net has been cut, while corporate profits are at record highs, as is executive compensation, and taxation of those exploiting us remains negligible in comparison. Who would want to further engage with and tie themselves to this broken system of unregulated capitalism that thrives on the ignorance of the masses? I am waiting for my father to pass, and then I am likely considering ending my life. It is despicable that we still have an economic model that requires millions to be unemployed at any given time in order to function. Who would willingly marry and have a child in this climate? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.